And this is my hot tub yoga flow. Now, this is not an ad, but it should be, okay? Wave hot tubs, show Uncle Baby Biscuits some love. We actually purchased this $500 inflatable hot tub from Wave Spas. Come over to the side here. It plugs into an electric outlet, heats up to 102, 103, 104, and you can even blow bubbles. Woo! 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 Again, this is not sponsored content, but I'm on the wrong side of 30. I turned 40 this year. I know many of you are, and I have joint pain or injuries from the past. As you get older, there's less margin for error with some of those old injuries, and you just wake up stiff and sore. So I've been doing pretty much for the last couple months, I wake up and I spend at least 30 to 60 minutes in the hot tub. I've been waking up extra early to do it at 6 a.m. I'll oftentimes spend the first 10 to 30 minutes reading to kind of get some positivity in my life, still train the brain, and then I start doing some stretches in here after I get warmed up. Now, why would you want to stretch in the warm water? Well, warmth, heat. It's gonna actually make your muscles really pliable. It's gonna give the joints the love they need to get into more bends, and you can actually spend more time in these positions too, because the water unloads some of the gravitational pressure. There's also compression, which is very therapeutic for the joints. Just being in the water heals. So here's what I do. Have some fun with it. Obviously, some hot tubs have the ability to put your feet up on steps for like step-up stretches or high box stretches. So you can do that too, or seated stretches, but this is all grounded. And I like to start initially too, and I'll often read like this. I'll cross my legs. Can kind of sit to the edge of this like this. Just kind of cross the legs a bit, and I can do some movement like this. Gets into that hip capsule, some rotation through the hips. I also like to, in this position, because of the fact that it takes off my body weight, I can actually push off the outsides of the feet and rise up a bit. It's kind of like a genie. Genie squats? Maybe I should call them that. Inhale through the nose going down. Exhale through the mouth going up. Then I love to go into the shin box stretch, but I'll show this one first actually. You kind of cross the legs like this. It's kind of a pretzel, and it really gets into the hip capsule, the glute, piriformis. A lot of people that have sciatica symptoms, this area gets really tight. And again, the water just allows me to get in this position really nicely, spend a lot of time in it. Most of these shapes you want to spend about 1 or 2 minutes and just move around and flow. This is my tight side, so I'll spend twice as long on this side, kind of pushing out against it. Now the shin box, this is my ultimate hip mobilizer, and it's so, like, you know, if you're going to be prone to back issues, if you have tightness here, particularly this 90-90 shape, so working internal rotation on the back leg of the hip, and then external rotation in the front leg of the hip. This is kind of like a lying quad stretch, sort of, and this is a modified pigeon position in yoga. We're working both angles here, and initially I'll just kind of start, and you kind of see me pushing the hip forward and back. I also love to get into this shoulder too, do some scapular work, shrugs, packing the shoulder down. This is so good for mobilizing the shoulder joint and strengthening the scapula and rotator cuff muscles as I retract and depress. And then I like to clamshell here. So I'm gonna post up, push out against the side. The thing to understand, if you can't get rotation through the hips, you'll compensate by excessively rotating or moving through your lumbar spine or lower back. And that's a problem. That's what causes pain. So again, mobile hips means less back pain. Clamshelling, work on my external rotators, my abductors, and I can sometimes push down this knee and lift up that trail foot. Small little range of motion, but little internal rotation there as well. Now, my favorite thing is the shin box squat. This is one of the best ways to correct imbalances between side, both strength and mobility. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on this because again, it's inflatable. I'm just kind of touching for counterbalance. I'm gonna exhale up through the mouth. Inhale down slow through the nose. And again, because I'm so warm, typically on land I'd be so stiff I'd almost kind of start dumping off to the side. It would just take me a while to get into it, but I'm already just so loose and warm. I can play between a squat from that shin box shape or a hip hinge. It's gonna get more into the glutes and hamstrings. And I can also switch sides, but another good one is just kind of getting into a seated squat here, and I can just work on coming in and out. Open up those hips, baby. This is the money shot, by the way. Should be on OnlyFans, right? But we're, you know, we're showing some love here. Free content. Oh yeah, right there too. And again, pay attention between the differences between sides. And oftentimes what I'll do, because I'm tight, my right hip is missing a little bit of internal rotation, meaning that in this position when it's the back leg, it's a little bit tight. So I always spend twice as often I do it twice as often and twice as long every time I do it in this tight side. And a lot of times too, when I'm watching TV at night, or I'll check email, or I'm doing, you know, I like to stack. You know, it's hard to find the time in the day, so you're doing some other tasks, try to get into these positions, just spend time in them. And I'll spend a lot of time on this tight side, just moving around as I showed previously. So that was the shin box. Now let's go into kind of, I guess in yoga would be called the prayer stretch, or just kind of a kneeling series. I had 4 knee surgeries by the time I was 22. I've spent almost 2 decades now rehabilitating and rebuilding my lower body. But again, whatever damage I did in there, you know, it's there. So I've got to be very cognizant of how my knees feel. And a lot of times it happens when you have surgeries or knee pain because it hurts or it's stiff to get into these bendable positions, especially on land. You avoid them and they get stiffer. And what's so important is when you get the joint through a full range of motion, full bend, full flexion, it sends synovial fluids into the joint, which nourish and heal the joint. So it's actually good to get in these positions. But again, I'm just taking my body weight off and it's hot. So I can actually get in some really good bends here. And if you're still struggling to bend, start with what's called flexion gapping. Take the ankle bones and stack them right behind the knee, and then stack your hamstring onto your calf, and just start by kind of moving. This is going to do a couple things. It actually massages and releases a lot of the soft tissue restrictions in the upper calf, lower hamstring, and behind the knee. It's also creating this gapping force. And it's like mobility magic. You do this and you can automatically bend your knee more because it gets into the joint capsule itself. But I'll get here and I'll just kind of work on some side to side movement. So this is actually not only mobilizing the knees, but also the hips. All right, I can come back here and kind of post up on my hands. I can do some scapular shrugs. And then I can actually start working a little bit of a hip extension from this position. So it's really doing a couple things here. It's stretching the quads, and you'll feel the pull coming all the way into the knee capsule. If it feels super tight, or you feel like some pulling or pulling on the actual kneecap itself, it means that these quads, they need some love. You got to self-massage them with a foam roller or a lacrosse ball or softball. They're tight. And much like if you took a rubber band and knotted it, and you tried to pull in that band, it's tightening things up, so you can't take the muscle through its full range of motion, and it's putting excessive pressure and compression on the joints we don't want. So this, again, it's kind of a movement screen too. It tells you how your body's feeling. Even if you don't do this like to start your day, 5 or 10 minutes pre-workout, if you work out from home or if you have access to a hot tub at your gym, it's such a smart way to train, especially in the morning, because the first 30, 60 minutes you wake up, you're dehydrated and your spine is super stiff. And it's very prone to injury, much more so any other time of day. So you want to hydrate and you want to heat and give yourself a little extra time, especially if you're on the wrong side of 30, to warm up that spine. Side to side here. And then I can start to come onto my toes here and improve my toe and foot mobility. A lot of times people will complain, they get into a lunge shape or a split squat and they can't dig the toes into the floor because they're missing the appropriate amount of range of motion there. So I'll post up, and you can even hear some clicking and cracking. All right, again, I said I was old. Uncle baby. Side to side like that, working both sides. I can also post up like that and work on some bends, flex, extend through the knees and the hips. And then I can also bring it into kneeling squats. Exhale up, inhale down. While I'm in this position here, I'm gonna go into a quadruped, all fours position. Now, many people complain of wrist pain during push-ups, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my hands. I'm gonna start by, kind of like I just did with the toes, I'm doing the same thing for the hands. I'm trying to spread the fingers. I'm kind of moving side to side here. I'm actually feeling all the articulations in small individual joints mobilize and open up a bit. And then I can take my fingers and point them towards my body. And again, this would be so tough if you were cold and not in water, because I mean, it's tough to get motion like this through the wrist. But spread the fingers, move side to side, rock back, really trying to improve your wrist mobility. And I even like to come through and do some what's called scapular shrugs, keeping the arms straight. I retract, the shoulder blades, pull them down and back here, and then I push them away up to the sky. Protract, really key for working the serratus anterior muscles right alongside the ribs. Very important for shoulder health. So I just did that series, and we can also bring it into a rocking squat. All right, you have trouble getting to parallel or below in your squat position without kind of rounding your lower back or lumbar spine, or butt winking as they call it. This drill will help. Inhale back, exhale forward. You can kind of shift side to side a bit to get into the adductors. And then I love going into some kind of split positions here. So I'll come forward like this, and I'm just gonna work on getting on the toes, mobilizing the toes, feet, and ankle, and I'm also taking that knee into full flexion. But again, it feels so good. Usually, if I rush myself into this, and this happens to a lot of people, it hurts. So you just automatically avoid it, or you hold your breath and panic. But by going through this sequence, and again, when I come out of the hot tub, man, like I feel great. I can then start to apply these same ranges of motion on land. I know, I hesitate to share this because a lot of people, aren't blessed to have access to a hot tub. But I knew this was going to be key for me as I got older. I set the goal. I needed access to both the pool. When we bought this home, I've got to get a pool because we're living in the desert. Show the pool. We paid for it. We just refloored it, okay? And then I also like a hot tub. I can create some contrast therapy, go from hot to cold since it's unheated. But I know the water heals. And again, I get a lot of questions from people 40, 50 plus. They want to try to find a way to regain motion or just stay active. Maybe you can't do as much as you did on land in the past, but you can make up for it in the water. And again, this is only 500 bucks. It's a fraction of the price of typical hot tubs. So I'll get off my soapbox. Here we go. So I did some of that. Now I'm going to kind of go between rocking back and then driving forward. So I'm getting hip flexors on the trail leg, and I'm getting knee, ankle, hip, and glute on the lead leg. I'm also kind of doing like a single leg kneeling squat here. All right, because it's using, all right, such a good movement to flow. Again, a lot of, just have some fun. Play around, move around. I love getting into also the hip flexor. So from a kneeling position, coming from the side here, ground in. And part of what's so great about this from a kneeling position, it helps take the head of the femur, your thigh bone, and helps centrate it back into the hip socket or acetabulum. Okay, I may have fucked up that word again, but it's the hip socket, getting it in there, because sometimes people will actually get into what's called the flexion wall. You'll squat down and the femur is improperly placed or put to the front of the capsule, and it hits the pelvis instead of going into the socket. So here we go. Exhale up, inhale down. I can hold that position and work on internal, external kind of windshield wipers for the hip. And the water gives me some resistance too, beautifully. I can then go here, and if you notice like one foot had a little more tightness, or you have trouble getting onto it, or you're prone to toe foot pain, I can just post back up on that toe and get more pressure than I did when I was doing it two legs only. But from right here, I can do some what's called dead stop lunges. So pause, exhale up, hover, inhale back down. Now I can also use some self-assistance here. You could bring a stick that didn't damage, like that has rubber that won't damage the bottom of the pool, or put like a stool or chair next to you, whatever you have access to. Don't want to put too much pressure on the inflatable, but you can use this stuff to self-assist, but the water is also unloading your body weight and keeping the joints and muscles nice and warm. Beautiful. You can move into a cobra, all right? Working full body extension and work on kind of squeezing the glutes and pressing the hips to the floor. You can kind of create a little rotation through the hips to get into the obliques or lateral chain. I also love to press scap shrugs from this cobra position. Turtle head, push down, and really get that chest going. Now, we showed those positions. Get into a little bit of a squat on the toes. Typically this would be really tough or painful for people, but again, I'm also flowing, and every position I get to next, I'm warmer and more Gumby-like, if you will. Just kind of going side to side on the toes like this. I can then kind of post up a bit, move to the foot flat, and kind of just sit into it. And now try to get some good diaphragmatic breathing going. Pull the air in through the nose into the belly. Full exhale through the mouth. I can come in like this and out. Oh, that's a real money shot. Money shot. All right. And then I can even do some squat pulses. Exhale up, inhale down. Show that from the side so they can see those man strings. All right. Again, there's no right or wrong way to move around. I'm even kind of going from squat to split squat with those bends and on the balls of the feet. So I've shown you a bunch of options. Don't forget about the straddle stretch. Get the groin and adductors. Going from one side to the other, getting some rotation through there. And you can also work on kind of a lateral lunge shape. Kind of on the back heel here. And I'm moving between full bends in this leg. And then I can rotate it kind of like a semi shin box. That back leg is internally rotated and back. Ooh, so good. I can feel it coming all the way into the giblets. Woo! That's that groin, baby. Trust me on this. This will be a game changer for you. It has allowed me to access positions I haven't in a very long time, and it gives me the confidence. I know if I spend some time in the water, especially with the heat, I can go onto land and trust my body more. Because that's the one thing, like, you can't recover as well as you used to when you get older. You have a smaller margin for error when it comes to your joints. And if you have previous injuries, like my knees, I always got to keep them warm and get them mobilized before I start training, because unfortunately, I already cashed those checks. All right, so I've got to check myself every time before I start training. I really hope this helped you guys. Subscribe to my channel. Go to bjgaddour.com to learn about everything we're doing, podcasts, our products, our membership site, and you can follow me on all of it at bjgaddour, at bjgaddour. Any questions, post in the comments, and I'll show you one more, the body weight leg extension. So I'm digging in, inhale back, keeping the glutes tight. Exhale forward. Now initially it might just be a slight little range of motion. You don't force it. And every rep, if I do it to like 5 to 10 reps, I get a little more range. My wife is like, you just closed out this video. Why are you still talking? All the way back. Love you guys. And by the way, check out the Lungeman workout in swim shorts. 4-inch inseam, thick thighs save lives. Go to sleepswellseparately.com to get your own pair today. We've got some in lots of colors, different prints, and they're guaranteed to increase sexual activity in your community. Peace.